What if the monster you swore to destroy turned out to be your own mother? In a galaxy ruled by secrets, one hunter is about to uncover a truth that could shatter everything and everyone. 219 06 879. Speaker 0. Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Dramatic music. 06 817. 0043 07 466. Speaker 1. In the vast expanse of colonized space, humanity's reach extended across hundreds of worlds. Yet, as our species spread among the stars, we carried with us the seeds of our own destruction. Our insatiable desire for power and control led to the creation of monstrosities that now threaten our very existence, genetically modified giants, their bodies weaponized and minds shattered by cruel experiments. Among these titans of terror, one name stood out, whispered in fear across the galaxy. Bloody Velka, standing at an imposing 10 feet tall, her green skin rippled with muscles as strong as steel cables. Her eyes, glowing an eerie toxic yellow, seemed to pierce through the souls of those unfortunate enough to cross her path. Wherever Velka went, chaos and destruction followed. Once thriving cities were reduced to smoldering craters, their inhabitants fleeing in terror or perishing in her wake. To most, Velka was a nightmare given flesh, a force of nature to be avoided at all costs. But to one man, she was simply another target. Axel Draven, a ruthless bounty hunter, saw her as nothing more than a means to an end, a substantial payday, and another notch on his already impressive belt of conquests. Little did he know that the very quarry he sought held the key to unlocking the mysteries of his own past. As Axel Draven prepared for the hunt that would change his life forever, he remained blissfully unaware of the profound connection between hunter and prey. The truth lay hidden, encoded in strands of DE, and buried beneath layers of pain, betrayal, and forgotten memories. Soon the hunter would become entangled in a web of secrets that would shake the very foundations of his existence. The sleek bounty hunter's vessel cut through the inky blackness of space, its hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Inside the ship's compact bridge, Axel Draven stood motionless, his cybernetically enhanced eyes fixed on the holographic display before him. The image of Velka, the green-skinned giantess, rotated slowly, accompanied by a scrolling list of her known crimes and last reported location. Axel Draven's lips curled into a mirthless smile as he absorbed the information. His body, a perfect fusion of flesh and cutting-edge combat cybernetics, tensed in anticipation of the challenge ahead. Years of betrayal and loneliness had frozen his heart, leaving behind a ruthlessly efficient killing machine driven by an insatiable hunger for credits and the thrill of the hunt. Approaching Helios 9, a feminine voice announced, breaking the silence. Nyra Cade, Axel Draven's unlikely partner for this mission, swiveled in her pilot's seat to face him. Her fingers danced across holographic controls, bringing up detailed scans of the planet below. Sensors indicate significant damage to the Novum colony. It's consistent with Velka's MO. Axel Draven nodded curtly, his cybernetic eye whirring as it zoomed in on the devastated landscape. Any signs of survivors? Nyra Cade shook her head, her expression grim. Negative. If anyone made it out alive, they're long gone by now. She paused, biting her lower lip. Axel Draven, are you sure about this? The Bounty Hunters Guild is offering an astronomical sum for Velka's capture. It seems too good to be true. Credits are credits, Axel Draven replied, his voice devoid of emotion. And Velka's reign of terror needs to end. We're doing the galaxy a favor. Nyra Cade sighed, turning back to the controls. If you say so. Just remember, my drones and my wits are all we've got out here. Let's not get in over our heads. As their ship began its descent through Helios 9's turbulent atmosphere, neither hunter could have predicted the storm of revelations that awaited them on the planet's surface. The moment their vessel touched down on the outskirts of the ruined Novum colony, Axel Draven's instincts screamed danger. The air was thick with the acrid smell of smoke and decay, and an eerie silence blanketed the devastated landscape. Axel Draven activated his tactical visor, scanning for any signs of movement among the twisted metal and shattered concrete. Nyra Cade, deploy your drones, he commanded, his voice low and tense. I don't like this. It's too quiet. Nyra Cade nodded, her fingers flying across her wrist-mounted control panel. With a soft whir, a swarm of sleek, disc-shaped drones emerged from compartments in their ship. The devices spread out in a wide arc, their sensors probing the ruins for any signs of life or danger. They had barely taken 10 steps from their ship when the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. Axel Draven's augmented reflexes kicked in, and he grabbed Nyra Cade's arm, pulling her behind a chunk of fallen building just as the earth erupted before them. A nightmarish creature burst from the ground, its elongated body covered in iridescent scales and razor-sharp spines. Its maw, filled with rows of needle-like teeth, snapped at the air where they had been standing moments before. 2 more of the monstrosities followed, their serpentine bodies writhing as they oriented on their prey. What the hell are those things? Nyra Cade gasped, her eyes wide with shock. Axel Draven's tactical visor flashed with analysis results. Mutated predators, he growled, deploying the plasma blades concealed in his cybernetic arms. Twisted by bioweapons, Velka's presence must have drawn them to the surface. The creatures attacked with terrifying speed and coordination. Axel Draven met their charge head-on, his plasma blades slicing through scales and bone with practiced precision. Nyra Cade's drones buzzed around the battle, firing concentrated energy bursts at the beast's vulnerable eyes and joints. Despite their skill, the hunters found themselves slowly being pushed back towards a gaping chasm in the ruined cityscape. Axel Draven dispatched another of the mutated predators, its bisected body falling, twitching, to the ground, but 2 more took its place. Axel Draven, Nyra Cade shouted over the din of battle. We can't keep this up. There are too many. Gritting his teeth, Axel Draven knew she was right. For every creature they felled, more seemed to pour from the earth, drawn by the scent of blood and the promise of fresh prey. They needed an escape route, and fast. Nyra Cade's eyes darted between her control panel and the surging mass of mutated flesh before them, her face set in grim determination as she came to a decision. I've got an idea, but you're not going to like it. Before Axel Draven could respond, Nyra Cade's fingers flew across her controls. The remaining drones, save for one, converged on the attacking creatures, their energy weapons firing at maximum capacity. The beasts recoiled, momentarily confused by the swarm of mechanical insects assaulting them. Run, Nyra Cade shouted, grabbing Axel Draven's arm and sprinting towards the chasm. Axel Draven's enhanced legs propelled them forward with inhuman speed. but he could hear the scrabbling of claws on stone as the predators recovered and gave chase. They reached the edge of the chasm, a yawning abyss that disappeared into darkness below. "Trust me," Neera Cade said, her voice barely a whisper. With that, she activated her final drone. The device shot forward, directly into the mass of pursuing creatures. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, with a deafening roar, the drone detonated. The explosion sent shockwaves through the unstable ground, and the lip of the chasm began to crumble. Axel Draven and Neera Cade leapt, their bodies silhouetted against the fiery blast. They plummeted into the darkness as tons of rubble and shrieking mutants fell around them. Axel Draven's cybernetic eye adjusted to the gloom, and he spotted a ledge jutting from the chasm wall. With lightning-fast reflexes, he grabbed Neera Cade and fired a grappling line from his wrist. The titanium cable went taut, and they swung in a wide arc, barely managing to land on the narrow outcropping. Dust and debris rained down around them as the last echoes of the collapse faded away. Neera Cade coughed, wiping grime from her face. "Well," she said with a weak smile, "that was a close one." Axel Draven's expression remained impassive, but there was a hint of respect in his voice as he replied, "Quick thinking, but now we're down here with no drones and no clear way back to the surface." Neera Cade's smile faded as the reality of their situation sank in. "We'll find a way out. We always do." She paused, glancing up at the now sealed chasm above them. "Besides, if Velka is still on this planet, there's a good chance she's down here too. We might have just stumbled into the perfect ambush opportunity." Axel Draven nodded, his tactical mind already analyzing their options. "Agreed, but stay alert. If those things were any indication, there's no telling what other horrors are lurking in these depths." With cautious steps, the pair began to make their way along the ledge, searching for a path that would lead them deeper into the planet's wounded heart. Little did they know that each step was bringing them closer to revelations that would shatter everything they thought they knew. As they navigated the treacherous underground passages, the air grew thick with the musty scent of long-buried secrets. Their path took them through a maze of collapsed tunnels and ancient caverns, remnants of Helios 9's subterranean colonial infrastructure, now twisted and broken by Velka's rampage. Axel Draven led the way, his cybernetic eye piercing the gloom and mapping their surroundings. Neera Cade followed close behind, her hand resting on the butt of her sidearm, every sense alert for danger. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional distant rumble of shifting earth and the soft crunch of debris beneath their feet. After what felt like hours of cautious progress, they emerged into a vast chamber. The remnants of human habitation were evident here, shattered vid screens, overturned furniture, and the eerie frozen figures of holograms caught in an endless loop of their final moments. "This must have been some kind of emergency bunker," Neera Cade whispered, her voice tinged with awe and sorrow. "These people never stood a chance." Axel Draven grunted in acknowledgement, his eyes scanning the room for any clues that might lead them to their quarry. As he moved deeper into the chamber, something caught his attention, a small, incongruous splash of color amid the gray debris. Crouching down, Axel Draven brushed away a layer of dust to reveal a child's toy. It was a small, plush figure of a smiling sun, its yellow fabric faded, but still vibrant against the drab surroundings. As his fingers closed around the toy, a jolt of recognition shot through him. Suddenly, he was no longer in the ruined bunker on Helios 9. Instead, he found himself transported back to a stark, sterile room in the orphanage where he had spent his childhood. The same toy, newer, brighter, clutched in his small hands as he huddled in a corner, trying to shut out the sounds of other children crying. A woman's voice, soft and filled with pain, echoed in his mind. "I'm so sorry, my little one. Please forgive me. Remember, family is where your..." Garbled audio awaited, while the memory was accompanied by flashes of other, more chaotic images. Alarms blaring, the acrid smell of smoke, being shoved into a cramped escape pod as explosions rocked the world around him. "Axel Draven! Axel Draven!" Nira Cade's voice cut through the fog of memory, snapping him back to the present. She was shaking his shoulder, concern etched on her face. "Are you all right? You just zoned out for a minute there." Axel Draven blinked, his mind reeling from the unexpected flood of memories. He looked down at the toy in his hand, then back at Nira Cade. "I'm fine," he said gruffly, quickly stuffing the plush son into a pocket of his tactical vest. "Just thought I saw something. It was nothing." Nira Cade's eyes narrowed, clearly not believing him, but she chose not to press the issue. "If you say so. But we should keep moving. I don't like being out in the open like this." Nodding in agreement, Axel Draven rose to his feet, trying to shake off the lingering disorientation from his flashback. As they prepared to move on, a low rumbling growl echoed through the chamber, causing both hunters to freeze in their tracks. "Please tell me that was your stomach," Nira Cade whispered, her hand tightening on her weapon. Axel Draven's reply was cut short by a deafening crash as a section of the far wall exploded inward. Through the cloud of dust and debris, a massive green-skinned figure emerged. Velka, the very quarry they had been pursuing, now stood before them in all her terrifying glory. Her muscles rippled beneath scarred skin as she straightened to her full, imposing height. The giantess's toxic yellow eyes swept the room, finally locking onto Axel Draven and Nira Cade. A feral grin spread across her face, revealing rows of sharpened teeth. "Little hunters," Velka growled, her voice a guttural parody of human speech. "Come to die in the dark." Axel Draven's combat systems kicked into high gear, flooding his body with adrenaline and activating his full array of cybernetic enhancements. Beside him, Nira Cade raised her weapon, her face a mask of determination, despite the fear evident in her eyes. "Nira Cade," Axel Draven said, his voice low and steady. "Remember the plan. Keep her off balance, I'll go in close." With a sharp nod from his partner, Axel Draven charged forward, his plasma blades humming to life. Velka roared a challenge, massive fists raised to meet his assault. The hunt had reached its climax, but neither predator nor prey could have anticipated the earth-shattering revelations that were about to unfold. The underground chamber erupted into chaos as Axel Draven engaged Velka in close combat. The bounty hunter's enhanced reflexes and cybernetic augmentations allowed him to dance around the giantess's devastating blows, his plasma blades leaving sizzling furrows in her thick green skin wherever they connected. Velka fought with the unrestrained fury of a force of nature. Her massive fists cratered the ground where Axel Draven had stood moments before, and her primal roars shook dust from the cavern's ceiling. The scavenged armor adorning her towering frame bore the scars of countless battles, a testament to the destruction she had wrought across the galaxy. From the periphery, Nira Cade provided crucial support. Though her drones were gone, her quick thinking and technical expertise proved invaluable. She dashed from cover to cover, using her hacking skills to reactivate dormant systems within the ruined bunker. Velka howled in pain and confusion as the forgotten defense turrets sprang to life, peppering her with suppressing fire. "Keep her distracted," Axel Draven shouted as he rolled beneath a wild swing from the giantess. Inaudible. Dobakaso 0631. He sprang to his feet, driving one of his plasma blades deep into Velka's thigh. The smell of burning flesh filled the air, accompanied by a bellow of rage from his opponent. Nira Cade nodded grimly, her fingers flying across her wrist-mounted computer. With a series of staccato bursts of static, the bunker's emergency lighting system flared to life. Brilliant flashes of light, and assaulted Velka's sensitive eyes momentarily blinding the behemoth. Seizing the opportunity, Axel Draven reached for one of the kinetic grenades strapped to his vest. He primed the device and hurled it at Velka's feet, diving for cover as the explosive detonated. The shockwave sent the giantess staggering, her massive frame crashing into a nearby wall. For a moment, it seemed as though the tide of battle had turned in the hunter's favor. Velka slumped against the cracked concrete, her breathing labored and her toxic yellow eyes unfocused. Axel Draven approached cautiously, plasma blades at the ready, prepared to deliver the final blow. It was then that something caught his eye. A glint of metal on Velka's wrist, partially obscured by the giantess's scavenged armor. As Axel Draven drew closer, his breath caught in his throat. There, incongruously delicate against Velka's scarred green skin, was a bracelet. But it wasn't just any bracelet. It was an exact match for the bracelet Axel Draven himself wore, a simple band engraved with the words, "Family is where you're awaited." Time seemed to slow as a flood of memories overwhelmed Axel Draven's senses. The sterile corridors of a secret laboratory materialized in his mind's eye. Alarms blared, and the acrid smell of smoke filled his nostrils. A woman's face, contorted with grief and determination, swam into focus. Her skin was unmarred green, her eyes a warm amber instead of toxic yellow. She clutched a small child, him tightly to her chest. "I'm so sorry, my little one." The woman's voice echoed in his mind, thick with unshed tears. "This is the only way to keep you safe. Remember, family is where you're awaited. I will find you again. I promise." The memory shifted, and Axel Draven relived the terrifying moment of being placed into an escape pod. The woman's anguished face disappearing as the hatch sealed shut. Explosions rocked the facility around them, and then darkness. Axel Draven staggered back, his plasma blades deactivating as he struggled to process the implications of what he had just remembered. Nira Cade, noticing his distress, called out in alarm. "Axel Draven, what's wrong? Finish it!" But before Axel Draven could respond, Velka's massive form suddenly tensed. The giantess's eyes snapped open, now filled with a clarity that hadn't been there before. Her gaze locked onto Axel Draven's face, and for a brief moment, recognition flickered in those toxic yellow depths. "Son." The word escaped Velka's lips as a broken whisper, barely audible, yet carrying the weight of years of loss and pain. The sheer impossibility of the situation left both hunter and hunted frozen in place, neither able to comprehend the full magnitude of what had just been revealed. Axel Draven's mind reeled, trying to reconcile the murderous behemoth before him with the desperate mother from his newly recovered memories. Nira Cade, unaware of the earth-shattering revelation unfolding before her, shouted a warning. "Axel Draven, look out!" Her cries snapped Axel Draven back to the present, just in time to see a new threat materialize. The air shimmered as cloaking fields disengaged, revealing a squad of sleek, heavily armed soldiers. Their armor bore the unmistakable logo of NeuroCore, the shadowy corporation responsible for creating the Titans. "Target acquired," the lead soldier's voice crackled through an external speaker. "Commencing cleanup operation. No witnesses." And in that moment, the dynamic of the confrontation shifted dramatically. Axel Draven, Nyra Cade, and Velka found themselves united against a common enemy, one that threatened to erase not only their lives, but the very truth of their existence. As plasma bolts from the NeuroCore soldiers' weapons sizzled through the air, Axel Draven made a split-second decision that would alter the course of his life forever. He lunged towards Velka, using his body to shield the wounded giantess from the incoming fire. "Nyra Cade," he shouted, "we need an exit now." Understanding dawned in Nyra Cade's eyes as she took in the scene before her. Without hesitation, she turned her considerable skills towards finding them an escape route. As Axel Draven engaged the NeuroCore soldiers in close-quarters combat, his mind raced to process the implications of what he had discovered. The hunter had become the protector, and the monster he had been sent to slay was in fact the key to unlocking his own mysterious past. The ruined bunker erupted into a maelstrom of plasma fire and frenzied combat as Axel Draven faced off against the NeuroCore cleaners. These were no ordinary soldiers. Their movements were unnaturally swift and powerful, betraying their hybrid nature. Axel Draven's tactical visor identified traces of bestial DNA interwoven with their human genome. The corporation had created the perfect hunting machines to cover up their dirty secrets. Axel Draven's cybernetically enhanced body pushed itself to the limit as he wove through the onslaught of attacks. His plasma blades hummed and crackled, leaving arcs of superheated air in their wake as he parried and countered the cleaners' assault. But even with his augmentations, he was outnumbered and outgunned. A strangled cry of pain escaped his lips as a plasma bolt grazed his shoulder, searing through his armor and leaving a trail of charred flesh. The momentary lapse in his defense allowed one of the hybrid soldiers to close in, its clawed gauntlet slashing towards Axel Draven's throat. Suddenly, a massive green hand intercepted the attack. Velka, her face contorted in a mixture of rage and confusion, had rejoined the fray. She lifted the cleaner bodily from the ground, her enormous fingers crushing its reinforced armor like tinfoil before hurling the broken form across the chamber. "No touch, my son," Velka growled, her words slurred but filled with primal protective instinct. Axel Draven's mind reeled at hearing those words again, but there was no time to dwell on their implications. He nodded grimly at the giantess before turning his attention back to the remaining cleaners. Together they formed an unlikely but formidable team, Axel Draven's precision and speed complementing Velka's raw power and unstoppable fury. Meanwhile, Nyra Cade worked feverishly at a battered console she had managed to partially reactivate. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces as she attempted to access the bunker's systems and find them a way out. Sweat beaded on her brow as she raced against time, the sounds of battle raging behind her. "Come on, come on," she muttered, her eyes scanning lines of code at a frantic pace. A stray bolt of plasma struck dangerously close to her position, showering her with sparks and debris. Nyra Cade yelped, but refused to abandon her task. Their lives depended on her success. As the battle raged on, Axel Draven found himself fighting not just for survival, but for answers. Each clash with the Neurocore cleaners only fueled his growing anger towards the corporation that had torn his family apart and twisted his mother into the very monster he had been sent to destroy. "Why?" he shouted at one of the hybrid soldiers as their blades locked. "Why did you do this to us?" The cleaner's only response was a bestial snarl as it pressed its attack. Axel Draven disengaged, narrowly avoiding a swipe that would have taken his head off. He countered with a vicious kick to the cleaner's knee, the cybernetic enhancements in his leg allowing him to shatter the joint with a sickening crunch. As he dispatched his opponent, Axel Draven's enhanced hearing picked up Naira Cade's triumphant exclamation. "I've got it. There's a maintenance tunnel that leads to the surface. We can—" Her words were cut short by a scream of pain. One of the cleaners had flanked their position, catching Naira Cade off guard. The hybrid soldier loomed over her, its clawed hand raised for a killing blow. Time seemed to slow as Axel Draven realized he was too far away to intervene. But before the cleaner could strike, Velka's massive form filled his vision. The giantess threw herself bodily at the attacker, using her own flesh as a shield to protect Naira Cade. The impact sent both Velka and the cleaner crashing through a weakened section of wall, opening up a new passageway. As the dust settled, Axel Draven could see Velka struggling to her feet, her green skin now slick with blood from fresh wounds. The cleaner lay motionless beneath her, crushed by the sheer mass of the Titan's body. "Go!" Velka bellowed, gesturing towards the newly created opening. "Escape. Find truth." Axel Draven hesitated, torn between the instinct to flee and a newfound, overwhelming urge to protect the mother he had only just discovered. Naira Cade stumbled to his side, clutching her injured arm. "Axel Draven, we have to move," she urged, her voice tight with pain. "There are more coming. We can't fight them all." With a final, anguished look at Erda, Axel Draven made his decision. He scooped Naira Cade into his arms and sprinted for the opening, trusting in his mother's incredible resilience to see her through. As they disappeared into the darkness of the maintenance tunnel, the sounds of renewed combat echoed behind them. Erda's roars of defiance mixed with the sharp reports of plasma weapons, creating a cacophony that seemed to shake the very foundations of the planet. Their flight through the twisting confines of the maintenance tunnel was a blur of shadows and pounding heartbeats. Axel Draven's cybernetic eye adjusted to the gloom, allowing him to navigate the treacherous path while carrying the injured Naira Cade. His mind, however, was a maelstrom of conflicting emotions and half-formed questions. After what felt like hours of desperate flight, they emerged onto the planet's surface. The harsh light of Helios 9's binary suns momentarily blinded them as they stumbled out of the underground complex. They found themselves in a desolate wasteland. The once thriving colony, now nothing more than a field of rubble, stretching to the horizon. Axel Draven gently set Naira Cade down, his enhanced senses scanning for any signs of pursuit. For the moment at least, it seemed they had evaded the Neurocore cleaners. As the immediate danger passed, the full weight of what had transpired in the bunker came crashing down upon him. "Naira Cade, Eto," he said, his voice hoarse with emotion he couldn't fully process. "We need to find a secure terminal. There's something I need to know." Naira Cade nodded, wincing as she cradled her injured arm. "I saw a data center not far from here when we first landed. If any systems are still operational, that's our best bet." She paused, studying Axel Draven's face with concern. "What happened back there, Axel Draven? You knew that thing, didn't you?" Axel Draven's jaw clenched as he struggled to find the words to explain. "She's not a thing, Nyra Cade. She's my mother." Nyra Cade's eyes widened in disbelief, but to her credit, she didn't question him further. Instead, she simply nodded and gestured towards a collapsed building in the distance. "The data center should be just beyond that structure. Let's go find your answers." As they made their way across the ruined landscape, Axel Draven's mind raced. The monster he had been sent to destroy was, in fact, the very person who had given him life. And somewhere, in the twisted machinations of NeuroCore, lay the truth of why she had been transformed and why he had been abandoned. They reached the data center, a squat, fortified building that had weathered Erda's rampage better than most. Axel Draven forced open the reinforced door, and they slipped inside. The interior was dark and silent, but a few emergency lights still flickered, indicating that some systems might still be operational. Nyra Cade immediately set to work, her fingers flying across the keyboards of the least damaged terminals. Despite her injury, her face was a mask of concentration as she attempted to breach the facility's security protocols. Minutes ticked by, each second feeling like an eternity to Axel Draven. He paced restlessly, his enhanced hearing straining for any sazon that might indicate they had been followed. Just as he was about to suggest they abandon the attempt and find another way off planet, Nyra Cade let out a triumphant exclamation. "I'm in," she announced, her eyes reflecting the glow of the screen before her. "Axel Draven, you need to see this." Axel Draven moved to her side, his heart pounding as he took in the information displayed on the terminal. Project files, personnel records, and classified memos scrolled past, each one adding another piece to the puzzle of his origins. As Nyra Cade continued to sift through the data, the terrible truth began to take shape. Axel Draven saw his own name, his real name, before he had been given the designation Axel Draven at the orphanage. He saw his mother's name, Dr. Elara Vai, a brilliant geneticist who had been instrumental in the early stages of NeuroCore's Titan project. "She volunteered," Axel Draven whispered, his voice barely audible. "She subjected herself to the experiments to save me from becoming a test subject." Nyra Cade's expression softened with sympathy as she pulled up more files. The Titan project was just the beginning. "Look at this. Project Hybrid. They used your mother's altered DNA to create you. Axel Draven, you're the first successful human-Titan hybrid." The revelation hit Axel Draven like a physical blow. He staggered back from the terminal, his mind struggling to process the implications. He was neither fully human nor Titan, but a bridge between the two, a weapon forged in the crucible of NeuroCore's amoral experimentation. "But why?" he managed to choke out. "Why abandon me?" Nyra Cade's fingers flew across the keyboard once more, and a final document appeared on the screen. It was a video file, corrupted and fragmented, but still partially viewable. With trembling hands, Axel Draven activated the playback. The image of Dr. Elara Vai flickered to life. Her green skin was unmarred, her eyes still a warm amber instead of toxic yellow. But her face was drawn with exhaustion and fear. "If you're seeing this," her recorded voice crackled through the speakers, "then I've succeeded in getting you to safety, my son. I'm so sorry for what you'll have to endure, but it was the only way to save you from NeuroCore's plans. They want to use you as a template for an army of hybrids, the perfect soldiers combining human intelligence with Titan strength." The image distorted, breaking up into static before reforming. Keep you safe. My mind is already beginning to fragment. Soon I won't remember who I am, who you are. But know this, everything I've done out of love for you. Find the truth. Expose NeuroCore. And remember, family is where you're awaited. The recording ended, leaving Axel Draven and Neera Cade in stunned silence. The weight of the truth settled over them like a shroud, heavy with implications and unanswered questions. Axel Draven's hands clenched into fists, his cybernetic enhancements whirring as they responded to the surge of emotion coursing through him. He had spent his life believing he had been discarded, unwanted. The truth, that he had been loved so deeply that his mother had sacrificed everything to protect him, was almost too much to bear. "We need to end this," he said, his voice low and filled with a newfound determination. "We need to stop NeuroCore and find a way to help my mother." Neera Cade nodded, her own expression hardening with resolve. "Agreed, but how? We're outgunned and outnumbered, and your mother, Axel Draven, you saw what she's become. Is there even a way to reverse what they've done to her?" Before Axel Draven could respond, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. The sound of distant explosions reached their ears, growing louder with each passing second. "We're out of time," Axel Draven growled, grabbing Neera Cade's uninjured arm. "We need to get off this planet now." As they raced out of the data center, the sky above them filled with the ominous shapes of descending NeuroCore warships. The corporation was done with surgical strikes. They were here to scorch the earth and bury their secrets for good. Axel Draven and Neera Cade ran, their path illuminated by the hellish glow of orbital bombardment. They had found the truth, but the real battle, for justice, for family, and for the future of humanity itself was only just beginning. The journey to NeuroCore's orbital station was a blur of tense silences and frantic preparation. Axel Draven and Neera Cade had managed to escape Helios 9 by the skin of their teeth, commandeering an automated supply ship in the case of the planet's destruction. As they approached their target, the full weight of their mission pressed down upon them. NeuroCore's facility hung in the void like a malevolent spider, its sleek lines belying the horrors that had been birthed within its walls. Axel Draven stood at the viewport, his cybernetic eye whirring as it analyzed the station's defenses. Beside him, Lyra worked feverishly to patch into the facility's systems, her face illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. "This is insane, you know," Lyra muttered, not looking up from her work. "The two of us against an entire NeuroCore black site. We should be running as far away from this place as possible." Axel Draven's jaw tightened. "You don't have to come with me, Lyra. I won't hold it against you if you want to leave." Lyra paused, finally meeting Axel Draven's gaze. There was a mixture of exasperation and affection in her eyes. "Don't be an idiot. I'm with you to the end. Someone has to make sure you don't get yourself killed." A ghost of a smile flickered across Axel Draven's face before his expression hardened once more. He nodded, grateful for Lyra's unwavering support. "What's our status?" Lyra turned back to her displays. "I've managed to spoof our transponder codes. As far as NeuroCore's systems are concerned, we're just another supply ship making a routine delivery. It should get us close enough to dock. After that..." She trailed off, the implications clear. "We improvise," Axel Draven finished grimly. As their stolen vessel approached the docking bay, tension filled the air. Axel Draven's enhanced senses were on high alert, ready to react to the slightest sign of danger. Lyra's fingers hovered over her controls, prepared to override security protocols at a moment's notice. By some miracle, or perhaps due to the hubris of those who believe their secrets safely buried, they managed to dock without incident. As the airlock cycled, Axel Draven and Lyra shared a final look of determination. There would be no turning back now. The interior of the Neurocore station was a stark contrast to the chaos they had left behind on Helios 9. Sterile white corridors stretched in every direction, the air heavy with the scent of disinfectant and ozone. Their footsteps echoed ominously as they made their way deeper into the facility, guided by Lyra's hacked schematics. They had barely made it past the first security checkpoint when alarms began to blare. Axel Draven's cybernetic eye picked up a flurry of movement on the periphery of his vision. Security drones deploying from hidden alcoves. So much for the element of surprise, Lyra muttered, drawing her sidearm. Axel Draven's plasma blades hummed to life. Stick to the plan. We need to reach the central laboratory. Whatever they did to my mother, the key to undoing it has to be there. What followed was a desperate race against time. Axel Draven and Lara fought their way through waves of security personnel and combat drones, their progress marked by a trail of destruction. Axel Draven's hybrid physiology proved its worth, his enhanced strength and reflexes allowing him to tear through Neurocore's defenses like tissue paper. Lyra was no less formidable. Her technical skills allowed her to turn the station's own systems against it, sealing bulkheads to cut off reinforcements and overloading power conduits to create improvised explosives. As they neared the heart of the facility, the resistance grew fiercer. Neurocore was throwing everything they had at the intruders, desperate to protect their most closely guarded secrets. Axel Draven and Lyra found themselves pinned down in a side corridor, plasma fire from a squad of heavily armed guards keeping them from advancing. "We're running out of time," Axel Draven growled, his cybernetic eyes scanning for weaknesses in the enemy's position. "They'll have the whole station locked down soon." Lyra nodded grimly, her face streaked with sweat and grime. "I've got one last trick up my sleeve. Cover me." And as Axel Draven laid down suppressing fire with his arm-mounted plasma caster, Lyra produced a small, innocuous-looking device from her pack. Her fingers danced across its surface, inputting a complex series of commands. "What is that?" Axel Draven asked, between bursts of fire. A fierce grin spread across Lyra's face. "A little souvenir from our last job, experimental EMP grenade. It should—" Her words were cut off by a deafening roar that shook the entire corridor. The far wall exploded inward in a shower of twisted metal and pulverized concrete. Through the dust and debris stepped a familiar green-skinned figure. Velka had arrived. The giantess's eyes blazed with primal fury as she took in the scene before her. With a bone-chilling howl, she charged the Neurocore guards, scattering them like bowling pins. In the chaos, Axel Draven and Lyra seized their opportunity to push forward. As they raced towards the central laboratory, Axel Draven's mind reeled. How had his mother survived? How had she found them? The questions would have to wait. For now, he was simply grateful for the intervention. They burst into the lab, a cavernous space filled with rows of ominous-looking equipment and glowing stasis tanks. Axel Draven's gaze was immediately drawn to a central console, its screens displaying a dizzying array of genetic data and experimental protocols. "This is it," he breathed, approaching the terminal. "The key to everything." Lyra took up a defensive position by the door, her weapon at the ready. "Make it quick. I don't think your mother can hold them off forever." Axel Draven's fingers flew across the console, his cybernetic implants interfacing directly with the system to process the vast amounts of data at inhuman speeds as the truth of Project Titan and his own hybrid nature unfolded before him. His expression morphed from concentration to horror. "They never intended to create super soldiers," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Titans, the hybrids, we were meant to be the next step in human evolution. NeuroCore wanted to remake humanity in their image, to control the very future of our species." Lyra's eyes widened at the implications. "Can you stop it?" Axel Draven nodded grimly. "I can do more than that. I can undo it. There's a kill switch built into the genetic modifications, a fail-safe in case the subjects ever broke free of NeuroCore's control. If I can activate it and broadcast the signal station-wide, it would reverse the changes," Lyra finished. "But Axel Draven, wouldn't that affect you too?" Before Axel Draven could respond, the lab doors burst open. Velka stumbled in, her massive frame battered and bleeding from dozens of wounds. Behind her, a squad of NeuroCore's elite guards poured into the room, their weapons trained on the trio. "Step away from the console," the lead guard ordered, his voice distorted by his helmet's speaker. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." Axel Draven's hand hovered over the activation sequence, his eyes locked with Velka's. In that moment, a silent understanding passed between mother and son. With a barely perceptible nod from Velka, Axel Draven made his choice. "I know exactly what I'm dealing with," he snarled, slamming his hand down on the console. The laboratory erupted into chaos. Alarms blared as the kill switch protocol activated, sending waves of energy pulsing through the station. Velka roared in agony as her body began to convulse, the very genetic structures that had transformed her into a monster now unraveling. Axel Draven felt the changes rippling through his own body, his cybernetic enhancements shorting out as his hybrid physiology destabilized. Through the haze of pain, he saw Lyra desperately trying to fight off the guards, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. With the last of his fading strength, Axel Draven lunged for the central power core. His plasma blade, sputtering and unstable, plunged into the heart of the reactor. Warning klaxons joined the cacophony of alarms as the station's systems began to overload. "Lyra," Axel Draven shouted over the din, "get to the ship, go!" Lyra hesitated for a split second before nodding, understanding the gravity of the situation. She fought her way to the exit, pausing only to look back at Axel Draven with a mixture of sorrow and respect. As the laboratory began to tear itself apart, Axel Draven crawled to where Erda lay. The giantess's form was shrinking, her green skin fading to a more human tone. Her eyes, no longer glowing with toxic yellow light, found Axel Draven's face. "My son," she whispered, her voice clear for the first time in years. "I'm so sorry." Axel Draven took her hand, feeling the warmth of her touch without the barrier of his cybernetic enhancements. "There's nothing to forgive," he said, his own voice rough with emotion. "We're ending this together." And as the station's reactor reached critical mass, mother and son held each other close. In their final moments, they found the peace that had eluded them for so long. The sins of NeuroCore would be washed away in fire, and with them, the twisted legacy of Project Titan. In the months following the destruction of NeuroCore's orbital station, whispers spread throughout the galaxy. Some spoke of a green-skinned ghost haunting the corporation's remaining facilities, wreaking havoc on their operations. Others claimed it was a new kind of monster, a hybrid creature with glowing eyes and cybernetic claws. Lyra, having narrowly escaped the station's destruction, knew the truth. As she worked tirelessly to decrypt the files they had stolen from NeuroCore, she uncovered a chilling reality. Axel Draven's DNA had evolved. The kill switch had not destroyed the hybrid genome. It had merely forced it to adapt. In the shadows of abandoned laboratories and forgotten outposts, a figure moved with purpose. Neither fully human nor Titan, he carried within him the legacy of both and the determination to right the wrongs of the past. The hunter had become something more, a protector, an avenger, a living embodiment of the truth that family transcends blood and DNA. As Axel Draven continued his crusade against the remnants of NeuroCore, he held close the memories of his mother's sacrifice and the lessons he had learned. In the end, it was not the strength of his enhanced body or the power of his cybernetic implants that defined him. It was the choice to fight for justice, to protect the innocent, and to ensure that the horrors of Project Titan would never be repeated. The galaxy would never be the same, but as long as there were secrets to uncover and wrongs to be righted, Axel Draven would be there, a shadow in the night, a legend whispered in fear by those who would exploit the vulnerable. The legacy of the Titan lived on, not as a weapon of destruction, but as a force for change.